once again from New Jersey, the place where metal forgot to die. This is the Too Many Notes new music review by hereliesmetal with Maledictus and
Samantha.
And once again, we are here to review a new metal album. Not a new and new metal album, but a new metal album. You obviously understand that.
That joke is old.
I know. I have old jokes. That's what I do. That's why they watch us. So what do we have today here?
Today we are here to talk about the newest release from EYEHATEGOD.
Oh.
You ever heard them?
Yeah, this is one of our bigger reviews, I'd say. We don't usually do huge bands. This is kind of a huge band, I would say. But,
with their latest release, History of Nomadic Behavior, came out on March 12th via Century Media. If you didn't know, this is a sludge band from New Orleans. Formed in 1988, and this is only their 6th album, however.
Yeah, they're kind of slow they're slow as their music as releasing albums. It is now time for the hereliesmetal 5-point bidirectional classification, including the categories genre loyalty, listenability, production style, music complexity, and just plain fun. And remember, as we always say, neither end of these scales mean good or bad. So let's see what we found out about the history of nomadic behavior, which is a very typical EYEHATEGOD sort of title, So anyway,
all right.
First
scale, true to nonconformists.
Yeah.
What do we have here? We've got a 2.5, which is
2.5,
kind of in the middle, leaning towards true for southern sludge. What makes you say this?
Well, it's there because this album kind of takes a little bit of a different approach, believe it or not. We'll get into that. So that's why I'm not giving it, total true.
Now,
here.
Are you comparing it to EYEHATEGOD's past catalog or the general idea of what sludge metal is?
Their own catalog, I would say.
I mean, you could say that they're their own genre, I think. Because they're very defining on their thing. So this kind of challenges our scale up a little bit, because I think if you take them just in the sludge or southern metal, groove metal, what hardcore tinge things they might fit in, they're kind of on the nonconformist side. But because they are such an established band, you want to say, are they branching out from their own formula, which is in itself nonconformist, and do we give that a true score? Because they kind of define their own genre.
Very good point. Yeah, I was kind of playing against them because, in a way, they kind of are their own version of sludge music. And not a lot of things that people consider sludge music is like EYEHATEGOD. Like, take another sludge band, take any typical other sludge band. They're not really like a lot.
Yeah, no. I can think of some people who grew up listening to EYEHATEGOD that sound like them now.
Yes.
But they don't have contemporaries that they didn't start a whole thing of sound-alikes at the time.
Yes.
Like they were them.
Yes. Holy Enema tried to sound like them.
So, okay, I would say, we're going to have to put them in the middle of the scale. Like your band tried to sound like
exactly.
EYEHATEGOD. We're going to need to put them in the middle of the scale here, but we're not quite sure, and that they're doing their own thing for sure, because they're doing the EYEHATEGOD thing, but they're still doing it what they've always been doing.
Yeah, they're just one's a little bit different. We'll get into that.
What do you think is okay? So, you think it goes? I personally, if you can't tell, Maledictus grew up listening to EYEHATEGOD. Was an old time fan. I was never. I don't have as much history with them. I'm familiar with the hits. I know the hits.
You have a couple of hits.
So it's hard for me to say that this album doesn't sound like classic EYEHATEGOD, because to me it did.
Yeah, if you're not too familiar with the catalog, it might be like, EYEHATEGOD, there they go again, doing their thing.
I mean, they're hitting all their normal beats.
Yes, they are.
There's the moaning.
I think there's a lot more moaning in this one, but I could be wrong.
The vocal stylings are very similar to my ear. The riffing is very similar as well. I mean, to me, it sounds very similar to past EYEHATEGOD. But again, I'm kind of like the layperson.
Well, I think a History of Nomadic Behavior is a little bit of a significant departure from their consistent, repetitive, and like you said, they're repetitive and predictable, sludge-laden. And they'll go from slow to fast sometimes, since they have a hardcore background.
Yeah, they've always done that.
Yeah, absolutely, because they're very much of a hardcore, very discharge based, things like that. They're not just sludge; they're a little bit more than that, and that's why they're kind of their own thing. But what's interesting about this one is the usual inaudible, meaning you can't understand. Maybe that's not the right word for that. Tortured vocals of Michael. Why is he called Michael Nine Williams? I never really knew him as that. Kind of read that. It's Michael Nine Williams. It's in Roman numerals.
For some reason, I always said Michael X.
IX. I just call it Michael Nine, but I never knew him as that growing up. That kind of seems like a more recent thing. I could be wrong. Anyway, it's different in a few ways. Upon hearing like the first track, the new release seemed a little bit more standardized to me. And I Hate God has always been like a very kind of cacophony of kind of just like, not in a Sonic Terror way, but a kind of like a very noisy kind of thing. A lot of feedback, and more of a low quality recording.
That's there. The feedback's still there.
Yes, they're definitely have their.
We'll talk about the production quality. Later. But
this album seems a little bit more like a standard album to me, like production wise, and we'll get into that obviously. But sure. It's a very different approach from their last record in 2014. That's what I'm really trying to get at here. And we'll go into detail, with other rating categories, what we're talking about here. But this latest release is daring to explore, I think, a little bit of a new direction, and and from a band that's really changed very little in the past 3 decades. That's what we're going to really focus on.
So they pushed themselves a little.
I think so.
We're giving this a weird score.
Yeah, it's a little bit weird, but okay. So
next scale,
Sonic Terror.
Our Sonic Terror scale. We're not rating these guys as terrifying. They're like on the pop end. I don't know if I agree with you. Maledictus made these scores this week. He's giving them a 4, which is deep in the heart of distorted pop, not all the way there. Why do you say
that? People like to, I think a lot of people assume the drastically detuned sludge songs like that I Hate God makes is automatically Sonic Terror, but especially not really in this record, and really for their previous records. Are they really Sonic Terror? I mean, despite the band having only one guitarist this time, it's only Jimmy Bauer. Brian Patton is not on this one. It's only one, so that changes the sound a lot. By the way, we'll get into that. But a history of nomadic behavior, as opposed to previous albums with Brian Patton, the riffs became they're a little bit like. They remain groovy, and they, as a southern sludge band, they have a grooviness to them. You'll never really be able to shake that from them. But this was a little bit more bluesier than before. And another thing that jumped out at me was the clarity of the vocals this time around. Like I said, they're usually pretty inaudible, but they're very clear, and you could really understand every word brutally clear.
But it's not a pop vocal by any means.
No, it's still Mike Williams.
It's not a melodic
vocals.
Vocal.
Yeah,
but it's well produced and audible, and has very little distortion on it. But it's not. It's a screaming vocal.
Yes, but
which I think pushes it towards Sonic Terror.
It makes it a little less noisy, though. Like when I can understand him, it's very strange to be able to understand every word he's saying to me. It's odd to me because usually if you take it back to like the first album, you cannot understand what he's saying.
He's basically a hardcore vocal.
Yes, he absolutely is. He really is.
So, and you can the thing is that with hardcore, usually the music is too loud, but
this isn't, though. It's very clear.
This is very much kind of a stripped down sound as far as sludge goes.
Maybe that's because they have one guitarist this time?
I think that's got to be it. Yeah. Like, it sounds like there's no bottom on it. Like, you can hear things, everything that's going on.
Yeah.
Because there just isn't really a lot going on. But I really hesitate to put it at distorted pop. I would say maybe it's in the middle because it's certainly not terrifying. It's not, but it's
not harsh to listen to.
It's also not like catchy.
Yeah.
Or like, or has nice choruses or things that I associate with what we considered pop.
It is dynamic, though. A lot of speed changes. It kind of keeps you. At attention, though. Like it doesn't really bore you out. Like as something that was pure sludge, this is going to be really slow, really doomy sludge, and this isn't really doomy sludge.
No, and I think if you compare it to a lot of modern sludge, which often gets in this very experimental noise, direction, this is highly listenable.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I'm saying. And they've always kind of been, groovy in a way.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
all right.
What do we got next?
Fisher Price to high production. We mentioned this a bit. We're giving this a very high for this sort of thing.
Surprisingly high.
4 in the almost at peak production here.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
Yeah, this has to be their highest production work to date. Yeah. I think, in my opinion. Comment down below. The vocals are crystal clear. Once again, I'm going to say it again. And like I said, you can hear, all the silly things Mike is singing about, which he's probably always been singing about. I mean, his lyrics are pretty consistent. They're about painful things, like just laying in a street corner high on heroin or something. That's what I'm picturing. Some guy just in a gutter going, ugh! That's what I'm picturing. Just these lyrics are about, in the filth of New Orleans, But it kind of gives you a real picture in your head, and he's very consistent with that. But the guitars, drums, and bass are all very distinctly tracked. And which is if you listen to Old Hey God, probably not so much. I Hey God, that signature bottom end sound, it seems a little bit lax in this time around. I think just because of the higher production.
Yeah, I felt like there was no bass on. Like I know there was a bass on the album, but there was no bottom on this album.
Yeah,
like it was.
Yeah, you can hear Gary Mater's bass, but it's a little bit more.
It wasn't very heavy. Yeah, it didn't strike me as very heavy.
And I think without Brian Patton, that's a whole nother guitar there, tuned down low, that you're not getting. And I think they recorded this it's high production, but it's a very natural recording too. I don't think they really tracked a lot. In my opinion, I think, it sounds like there's one guitar player. They didn't track a whole bunch of guitars, make it sound like there were two guitars. Like if you listen to I Hate God's album when Brian Patton and Jimmy Bower, you can hear both of their sounds very distinctly kind of dancing around each other because they're very, because they're very inconsistent guitar players. They're kind of not playing the same thing, which is kind of how I do things, They're very loose, and you can hear them both, and you only hear one guitar player this time, so it's very clear, and that affects the sound big time. So anyway,
okay, our next scale, where we count the notes, enough notes to too many. We're giving, very interesting. You're giving this kind of a middle score, slightly on the side of enough notes.
Yeah.
So you're saying, what are you saying here?
In the grand scheme of things, obviously there would not be a lot of notes here, but however, for this kind of music, there's more than you thought they'd be. And what I mean by that is Jimmy Bower's riffs are a little more complicated than you would think. In general, they are. There's a lot of crazy things he does, and they're not complicated things, but they're very dynamic, and they're not, they're kind of all over the place. Maybe that's just chaos, but it's not easy to repeat, if you tried to play it. That's what I'm trying to get at. There's lots of time changes, obviously. That's kind of complicated.
I didn't notice that.
There's a lot of speed changes. Not I didn't mean time signature changes. Oh, I meant speed. Okay, yes. I meant speed changes.
There are
That's
tempo
what I meant.
Changes.
Yes, not to be confused. For musical experts out there, they'll be like, "What are you talking about? It's in 4/4. It's always in 4/4. Maybe it's in 3/4 once in a while, but it's not going to go beyond that. Yeah, I don't mean like prog rock 5/6, 5 whatever. I don't know. Whatever those things go, however those fractions 5/4. Go, 5/4, yeah, 6/4. There's always a 4, right, or an 8, right? It's got to be an even number on the bottom, right? I would imagine. So anyway, it's I'm not saying it's like I said, it's not proggy, but it's a little more sophisticated than I Hate God's, kind of doomy hardcore punk roots. A little more sophisticated, and it's a short instrumental called "Smoker's Piece." And it's kind of like a beatnik kind of jazz feel to it, walking bass line. It seems kind of a little more of an experiment for I Hate God, with something like that. It's kind of
from New Orleans.
Yeah, so yes,
should
obviously,
have some jazz.
Yeah, absolutely, they got to have some jazz in their blood, being from New Orleans. So anyway, what else do we have?
All right, I guess I agree. I mean, I'm not. They seem very simple to me.
Yeah.
I don't pick up a lot of complexity.
They are. I think a lot of the stuff you're listening to is generally more complex. So
so I might have rated them a little lower, but yeah, I don't know. I think this is way more up your alley. So we'll let your score stand here.
I think I like, when we listen to them, I think I like simpler stuff in general. Too many notes. That's why I call this thing Too Many Notes, because too many notes kind of they scare me. Too many notes sometimes, and a lot of times.
But you almost have I Hate God here into Too Many Notes territory.
Yeah, it's more than I expected, so I got to move them in their own little low bar.
You wanted less notes.
Yeah, I expected less notes
on your I Hate God.
There's a low bar in this kind of music, so I put that scale a little higher for them.
Okay. Our final scale, fun to focused. You're giving this a score of focused. 4, almost 4. All the way focused. I agree, but you go ahead.
Okay. So as usual, I Hate God's record never seemed like they weren't totally laser-eyed focused on whatever sort of anti-establishment politics Michael Nine is spouting. But a history of nomadic behavior is no different lyrically. This, only like I said before, and I keep saying this time you could clearly understand Mike's message here, and lyrics and the overall theme of the record don't appear in jest or anything. It seems like he's really pretty serious in his spoutings. I Hate God's entire discography has always been intended to promote sort of a decaying, strung out, and hopeless feeling, like I mentioned before, just passed out dead in a gutter in New Orleans.
A lot of moaning.
Yeah, there's a lot of painful, and he definitely does, but it just seems like, well, maybe you could just hear it more. But in between songs, there's a lot of, but that's Mike Williams. It's his version of Jimmy Bower's feedbacking guitars. That's I Hate God.
He has a vocal feedback.
He does. It's his version of Jimmy Bower's signature feedback. So, but basically, this I Hate God and everything about them is New Orleans, is the seedy part, the dark, seedy, gross part of New Orleans in a nutshell. I think it's so New Orleans, and
and it's not celebrating it.
No,
it's telling you it's bad.
Yeah, it's not
it's bad and it's sad and you should feel bad.
Yeah, you're homeless. You're in a swamp and you're strung out in heroin and you're gonna die. And no one loves you.
The world is bad.
Yeah, they've always had that theme. It's in their artwork. It's all over this band. It just gives you a bad, gross feeling. As the true sludge bands like these guys or Acid Bath kind of give you that. But yeah, it's difficult to have a good time with this album. It's not going to put you in a good mood. So
you're supposed to feel
don't do acid.
Despair.
Yeah, despair. Despair is one word. Say I Hate God, one album. Despair. Despair. Mike Williams strung out. I tell you, he's a lot more energetic since his surgery. I feel like there's a lot more energy in him. He has a lot more spring in his step, and
Did you hear that on the album?
Yeah, yes, just more spring in his step. Maybe that's one of the reasons for the clear vocals. He's a lot more since he got the surgery. He's a lot healthier. We saw him when there was music. That was like last year sometime, or probably 2 years ago. And they seemed a lot more energetic. Not they weren't very happy to play at the club that we saw them at, but that's been a thing. But they were, he was more energetic actually. Actually, that show he had Brian Patton playing again because Jimmy Bower was on vacation, so Brian Patton came back to play that one, which was different. But either way,
But yes, they were playing at this club that's more of I would say it's more tuned for like indie rock.
We got married there.
We got married at that club.
Yes.
So it's really nice in there.
Yeah, it's a nice place.
And they seem a little out of place.
Yeah, they don't like nice places. I've always seen their environment has always been like a chic, kind of a small. St. Vitus in Brooklyn is a perfect place for them. They do very well there. But when they came here, they had a very small audience and they weren't happy about it. It's a little too big. It's too nice for them. You can't give them nice things. They don't like it. So anyway, the artwork is typical I Hate God. It's like that collage style thing. There it is.
You want to look at it?
Yeah, here it is. Let's bing bang boom.
Pull it up for me.
Let's bing bang boom. So yeah, that's a typical I Hate God cover.
Religious icon here.
Yeah, a little religious
imagery.
A lot of branches. There's always branches.
I wonder what the symbol.
I don't know what that symbol
symbology of those flowers. Those flowers.
Yeah, I wonder if these are what kind of flowers these are.
I'm sure they mean something.
Yes. This is the I Hate God symbol. It looks like a Rorschach. What does that look like to you? That looks like a scorpion to me. What does that look like to you in a Rorschach test?
Looks like a phoenix.
A phoenix. Okay. Yeah, I'm seeing a scorpion. So yeah. So there you go. That's our Rorschach analysis.
History of Nomadic Behavior. I feel like that must be like about their life on the road.
Maybe.
And now it's over.
Yeah. They're like, we used to do it. Maybe that's what they mean.
I wonder what they've been doing.
Mm-hmm.
So did you like the album?
Comment down below.
I'm asking you.
Oh, me? Oh, yeah, it was okay. I haven't really been like focused on these guys in the past few years. But comparing it to the last album, it's okay, but it's different. It's a little more clear. I think they're starting to become. They're getting very popular now. Like I think they're in the metal world. They're kind of an icon. Did
you enjoy the album?
Yeah, it was okay. It was okay. It's not something I'm going to listen to all the time. So I'm not in the mood to listen to something like that all the time, naturally, because it's kind of despairful, But
you're not a teenager anymore.
Yeah, I'm not a depressed, incel anymore. Not that this music is for that. I'm not saying that in any way, but it appealed to me.
It could be.
Yeah. it appealed to me very greatly back then in the 90s. But I'd probably rather listen to something else. But I'm not saying it's a bad album. It's just, you should check it out. Especially if you're, I Hate God fan. I Hate God has their fans. It's a very, and I have the shirt because I'm a classic fan. Not some poser. So yeah, that's about it for this one. So yeah, check it out. It's like I said, this is definitely a bigger album we're reviewing here.
I would say check it out if you're an I Hate God fan.
Sure, yeah, why not? So you're not gonna hate it. You're not gonna hate it.
Maybe if you're a sludge connoisseur.
Yeah.
I'm not that hot on this album myself. I'm not a huge I Hate God fan.
Yeah.
And if you have problems with I Hate God like I do, and that they're a bit repetitive,
they're repetitive. That's definitely
maybe a little boring. I would not listen to this. I think this album would be good. I think I would recommend this more if it was 20 minutes long. I think it is twice as long as it should be.
It doesn't need to be long. That's a fact.
Yeah, and I could even pick out what songs to cut.
Yeah, you can cut out a few. Yeah, it's a little bit different though.
Yeah, but it has some good moments. I'll say that.
Yeah.
It does.
And if you want to hear what Michael Williams is saying, this is your album. If you want to hear all the things he's saying, you can hear them clearly. Typical Michael Williams subject. Anyway, so yeah, that has been History of Nomadic Behavior by EYEHATEGOD.